I let my friend send flirty texts from my phone for laughs. When I got home, he was gone. Hey, Reddit, throwaway account because people I know have Reddit, and I really don't want them seeing this. I really do need some advice, though. I married my husband, Chris, 35 male, 7 years ago. I, 34 female, was fresh out of med school, and he was done with law school. We had been dating for almost 10 years when we got married. Now that I think about it, we've been together half the time I've been alive. Crazy. Anyways, Chris and I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but good. We had our fights and issues, but we always worked things out in the end. We loved each other. Before we even started dating, Chris had always made it clear that cheating was a huge deal breaker for him. His father cheated on his mom and she stayed. He saw how devastated his mom had been in the marriage till she died. He doesn't even have a relationship with his dad because of all the resentment he has for him. I accepted this easily as I had never cheated on anyone and didn't plan to cheat on Chris. Why would I cheat on Chris? He was my dream man. About 3 months ago, a med student started working at the hospital I work at. Let's call him John, 25, male. John was very similar to Chris. You can say I have a type. He was tall, dark hair, a real nice smile, soft brown eyes. He could pass as my husband's younger brother or something. They couldn't be more different, though. Where Chris was quiet, John was loud. Where Chris was type A, John was very type B. Half the time, John didn't even know if he was supposed to come in that day. We struck up a quick friendship. He accidentally ate my lunch in the break room fridge. To be fair, we had similar-looking Tupperware. The minute he realized, he volunteered to buy me lunch for a week. He was young and full of ideas and very easy to talk to. Easy on the eyes, too. Very soon, we graduated from work friends to actual friends. We met up for brunch. We took late-night walks together. We even had friend dates. One day, in the break room, John was telling the other med students about his girlfriend. I joined the conversation to ask him why he never told me he had a girlfriend. He let out a little laugh and asked if it was common to tell your supervisor about your dating life. The other med students laughed at that too. I felt really sad when he told me this. I thought he saw me as more than a supervisor. I also didn't like that he gave me the impression that he was single. We talked every day and texted on the weekends, and he never once mentioned her. After that, I tried to be more involved in his life, so he saw me more as a friend than a supervisor. It didn't take long for us to be very close. It all took a turn about 2 weeks ago, when John suddenly let me know that he and his girlfriend broke up. He was very sad, so I offered to take him to a club to cheer him up. He seemed weirded out by the idea, but came around eventually. When I got home that evening, Chris was making dinner. Chris asked me about my evening plans, and I told him I was going to my best friend's house for a few drinks. I don't know why I lied. Chris knew about John. They had never met, but I had told him about the guy that looks just like him at work. I guess that was my first mistake. John and I went to the club. We were drinking, but he refused to dance with me, which made me a little sad. I don't know if I mentioned it, but John is handsome. Like, make people do a double take handsome. It took like 10 seconds for other girls to come and buy him drinks and chat him up. To make things worse, he danced with them, right in front of me. Like, that's rude, right? He basically ignored me the whole night to dance and talk with other girls. I felt weird the whole night. After he left with some blonde, I got an Uber home. Chris was asleep when I got home, so I just got into bed next to him. Chris cuddled me in my sleep, and I literally felt my heart expand. I loved him so much, sometimes I didn't know what to do with it. The next day at work, John acted as if everything was normal between us. He greeted me in the morning with a fist bump and even sat with me during lunch. It felt weird hanging out with him knowing that he left me at the bar to sleep with some 24-year-old last night. I must have been acting cold because John asked me if I was sick or something. I looked into his eyes and I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked him if he slept with that girl last night. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, then said that was none of my business. He got up and left after that. I didn't see him again that day. I don't think I was wrong in asking that. I mean, friends do that. He spent the next day avoiding me. But something happened 2 days after the club thing. John had finally gotten over himself and was talking to me again. As we sat in the break room together, I kept fantasizing about how good a kisser John would be. His lips looked really soft, and before I could help myself, my lips were on his. The kiss lasted a while before John pulled away. He looked confused for a while before letting out a small laugh. Then he told me he'd see me later. He rushed out the room very quickly after that. Meanwhile, Chris accused me of becoming distant with him. He said I'm always on my phone and texting other people. He demanded to look through my phone. I gave it to him. I had nothing to hide anyways. He looked through it for a second before asking who John was and why I texted him all the time. I told him who John was, but he still looked annoyed. The texts were nothing flirty or bad, just us sending memes back and forth and making time to hang out. Chris didn't like my answer. He slept on the couch that night. The next morning we had an argument. This is when I admit I may have been a bit of a jerk. I accused Chris of being insecure that I had a male friend. Then I said that maybe Chris didn't deserve my attention and John did. Of course he didn't know about the kiss yet, and I had no plans to tell him. It was just a little mistake that John and I would keep as a secret. Chris and I haven't really spoken since the argument. A few nights ago, my best friend invited me for drinks. We'll call her Becky. She lives just down the street from me, so it was perfect for an evening hangout. We got a little tipsy, and I ended up telling her everything. Out of nowhere, her eyes lit up. She made grabby hands for my phone, and I handed it over. She told me that John was probably intimidated that a successful older woman was paying attention to him. She said he was probably giddy to be getting all that attention from me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she was right. That's why he's been weird all week. He just didn't know what to do with all that attention on him. Becky quickly opened my phone and sent off a couple of texts to John. She didn't let me see them. I was so drunk that I let her. We spent the night drinking and laughing. Sometime around 11, Becky sent a text to my husband telling him I'll be sleeping over. That morning, I woke up with a raging hangover. Becky was passed out on the couch when I got my phone off the kitchen counter. When I got to the house, Chris's car was gone, which looking back was a bit strange. But like I said, I was hungover, so I didn't think about it too hard. I let myself in with my key to a quiet house. Now, I know I said Chris is quiet, but he isn't silent. He's always humming something, stomping around with that heavy walk of his. This was when I started to think something was up. I checked the whole house. He wasn't there. He had cleared out his clothes from the closet. A couple suitcases were missing. His toothbrush was gone too. This was when I started panicking. I sat in the living room and sent him a text asking him where he was. That's when I saw two things. First up was the text that Becky sent John from my phone. When I read them, my jaw dropped. The texts were so flirty. And not subtle flirty, very, very strong flirting. John never responded, but he did read it. The second thing I saw was an email from the HR department of the hospital. They wanted to see me first thing Monday morning for inappropriate harassment of a coworker. What? I called John, and he picked up on the first ring. The first thing I did was apologize. I told him that Becky sent those texts. I then asked if he could talk to HR and get the meeting canceled. John was quiet for a little bit before chuckling a little bit. Then he laid into me. I won't tell you exactly what he said because Reddit will take my post down, but basically, he has felt weirded out by our relationship from the beginning. He felt obligated to hang out with me so he wouldn't lose his placement. When I kissed him in the break room, he told me he felt so uncomfortable he had to leave immediately. The asking about his sex life and the texts were the last straw. Then he dropped the bomb on me. He didn't send an email to HR. He only sent the text to my husband, and he told him about the kiss. When I heard that, I immediately called my husband. He didn't pick. I tried calling his friends, family, and coworkers, and none of them picked up either. I did get one text from him, telling me he was safe, but I was going to get what I deserved. I asked what he meant by that, but I didn't receive a reply back. I was so depressed that day. I spent most of it in bed, only getting up to pee. I tried to call both John and Chris, but I think they both blocked me because my calls did not go through. I decided to go to Chris's brother's house to see if he was there. When I got to his brother's place, I saw Chris's car in the driveway. As I watched from across the street, Chris himself came out of the garage and got into his car. He drove off, and I decided to follow him. After driving for about 20 minutes, Chris pulled up to the gym we both go to. He came out of the car, and I ran up to him. He looked surprised to see me, but let me throw my hands around him and hug him tight. He didn't hug me back. When I let go and looked at his face, I was shocked at what I saw there. Nothing. His face was cold and had almost no emotion on it, like I wasn't his wife, like I was a complete stranger, I just started rambling to him, explaining how all this was just a big misunderstanding and begging him to come home. The people inside the gym were giving us weird looks, so I suggested we go talk in my car. I tried to pull him away, but he didn't budge. He just kept staring at me blankly. After a while, he just shook his head and said he didn't even know who I was anymore. He repeated what he said in the text, that I was going to get what I deserved. It felt like a slap in the face. What did he mean by that? He knew me more than anyone in the world. We had been friends for years before we even got together. He was my soulmate. Did all these years not matter to him anymore because of some stupid misunderstanding? He just left me there, standing in the middle of the parking lot. I didn't move for a good 5 minutes. Half of me wanted to go in there and ask him what he meant by that, but I didn't want to cause a scene, so the other half won. I went back home and just sobbed in bed the whole night. I must have fallen asleep at some point because when next I opened my eyes, it was morning. I checked my phone, hoping that Chris texted or called me last night. He didn't. The only thing on my notice was the reminder that I had a meeting with HR. I had totally forgotten about that. It felt weird starting my day without seeing or hearing Chris move around the house. I kept thinking he's in the kitchen or in the bathroom or around the corner, but of course he wasn't. When I got to work that day, I felt eyes on me. People kept whispering and pointing. They wouldn't look me in the eye. The med students were being really rude too. Obviously, the story must have gotten out. When I got to the meeting, John was already there. He glared at me as I sat next to him. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could, the head of HR, Cynthia, walked in. Cynthia was very no-nonsense, but also very reasonable, so I felt she would really get how this whole thing was just a huge misunderstanding. Boy, was I wrong. She started the meeting by greeting us. Then she got right into it. She laid out John's complaints against me, citing unwanted advances and weird, invasive comments. He had proof, too. Apparently, his fellow students testified that I had been touchy and pushy with John. However, they didn't want to cause any trouble, so they didn't speak up. After this, John spoke up about how he felt pressured to hang out with me outside work, despite me being his supervisor. He felt I was insistent on knowing private details of his life. Finally, he mentioned the texts and the kiss. Cynthia turned to me and asked if all this was true. I looked right at her and told her that while they were true, I wasn't trying to pursue a relationship with John. I just wanted a friend. Cynthia then asked if I sent texts like that to all my friends. I tried to explain that Becky sent those texts, but I don't think either of them believed me. She didn't even hear me out on the kiss. I was trying to explain that it had been a little mistake, but she just shut me down with a look. The meeting finished up pretty quickly after that. Cynthia said I have a paid week off before they decide on the outcome. In the meantime, I'm not supposed to contact John or any of the other med students. I couldn't help myself. I had to talk to John. When I cornered him outside the hospital at the end of the workday, he told me everything. Chris was the one who sent the email to HR. He was also the one who told all the med students. I have no idea how he got their numbers, but he did. Maybe the university registry or something. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that Chris destroyed my reputation with them. From the way the other staff members were behaving, I think the med students must have spread the news around. When I got home from the meeting, Chris's brother was waiting for me on our front porch. Let's call him Caleb. My heart literally jumped because I thought he was Chris at first. They looked pretty similar from the side. Caleb looked sad when I finally came up to him. I invited him in, but he said he didn't plan on staying long. We sat on the front steps of the house instead. He let out a big sigh before he told me the news. Chris was gone. He had found an apartment in the city that a friend of a friend agreed to lease to him. He had packed up this morning and left this afternoon after he got back from the gym. While I was still struggling to process all this, Caleb slid an envelope to me. He just told me to open it when I asked him what it was. Divorce papers? They were divorce papers. My eyes quickly filled with tears. Chris was leaving me. Caleb told me that as Chris's lawyer, he'll see me in court, but as my brother-in-law, what I did was pretty bad. I told him the entire story, hoping to clear my name, but he wasn't having it. He stood up and told me that emotional cheating was just as bad as physical cheating, and I somehow managed to do both. I really didn't have anything to say after that. He left. I tried calling Chris again, but my calls went straight to voicemail, so I called Becky instead. Becky was quiet as I told her everything that had happened since I left her place. She told me to come over. When I got there, I just started sobbing in her arms. I'm sure you guys are sensing a theme here. I cried for what felt like hours. My husband wanted a divorce, and one of my best friends claims that our relationship only started because he was pressured into it. Safe to say that that weekend was the worst of my life. When I finally stopped crying, Becky gave me a stern look. First, she apologized for sending those texts and offered to tell Cynthia herself. Then she told me she had to get real for a second. I trust Becky with my life, and she's always been honest with me, so I knew she would give it to me straight. Becky told me that it doesn't matter what my intentions with John were. It only matters how it came across to him. She said I should apologize to him. Then she reminded me how Chris always said that cheating was a deal breaker for him. She said he had every right to leave. When I heard Becky say that, all the fight left my body. I realized she was right. Just like Caleb was right. Just like Chris was right. That kiss wasn't just a mistake. I cheated. End of. Which leads me to today. It's been 3 days since my talk with Becky and Caleb. I've been good, and I haven't tried to contact John or his friends. I made a decision last night that I will try and win my husband back. I didn't come here for sympathy or anything. I just want some advice on how to win my husband back. So, Reddit, what do I do? All right, guys, I apologize for not bothering to update for 3 months, but I need you all to understand that so much happened, I didn't even have time to catch a break and open Reddit. I read through the comments all those months back. So many were mean and said horrible things about me and Becky. While I don't mind being insulted, I draw the line at my best friend being dragged into it. So just chill on her, okay? Some of you had some genuine advice for me, so thank you for that. I took some of the advice. Let me start from the beginning. I lost my job. A week after the meeting with HR, Cynthia called me into her office. My heart was beating out my chest. I think I already knew what was coming. Cynthia gave it to me straight, and she didn't waste my time, which I appreciated. As I cleared out my locker and my desk, I got hit with a random wave of anger. Anger at myself. I couldn't believe that I let this dumb one-sided affair make me jobless. I was also a little angry at Chris. If he never sent that email, none of this would have happened. I knew he was angry, but angry enough to ruin my life? That's crazy. After I had cleared all my stuff, I knocked on the break room door. John was in there talking to the other students. They all went quiet when I walked in. I walked right up to John. I knew I wasn't supposed to talk to him, but my job wasn't on the line anymore. I had nothing left to lose anymore. Before he could get a word out, I launched into an apology. From the look on his face, that wasn't what he expected to hear from me. I finished my speech by telling him that I understood if he never forgives me, but I genuinely am sorry for everything I did. John was quiet before giving me a tiny nod. I knew I wasn't going to get any more than that. While it made me sad, I knew that he didn't owe me anything. I spent the next week trying to get in contact with Chris. None of his friends and family would answer my questions. All I knew was that he lived in the city. I had no idea where. Luckily, Chris must have paid for some furniture with our joint savings account. After that, it wasn't hard to track down the store he got them from. I went in there the next day and pretended we had a logistics issue with the address, and the sweet lady working there was more than happy to show me the address they accidentally sent the furniture to. 2 hours later, I stood in front of a high-rise building in the nicer part of the city. Certainly nicer than the building we lived in when we were still in the city. I knew Chris wasn't going to buzz me up, so I waited for hours until someone walked out the building. Before the door closed behind them, I slipped in. Chris wasn't expecting me. I think he didn't think he'd see me before our court date, but I hadn't signed those papers yet, and I didn't plan to. He let me in, which surprised me. I genuinely thought he was just going to slam the door in my face. The apartment was bare with boxes and furniture scattered around. Seeing him just move on without me made my throat burn. Chris was calm. Too calm. I wanted to wipe that serene look off his face. When he asked me if I wanted some coffee, I lost it. I exploded on him. I asked him how he could easily give up on us, give up on me. I know I came here to talk it out, but seeing him just living his life made me feel like clawing my skin off. Chris waited for me to finish my Chris, always so patient. When he spoke again, his voice was calm, like he felt nothing. He told me that he had been honest with me from the start. He told me that cheating was a deal breaker. He told me that I didn't communicate with him the last few months of our marriage. He told me he deserves to be happy. He told me he wasn't happy with me anymore. He told me that he was going to fight me for everything. He told me to leave his house. I thought I was going to crash on the way home. My eyes were full of tears and I couldn't see the road properly. I actually pulled over a few times to cry. My marriage was over. When I got home, I opened the envelope that Caleb gave me. I didn't even allow myself to read the print. I just signed it and sent it off to Caleb. The divorce process was not easy. Chris wanted the house and spousal support. His argument was that I had the affair. The judge was sympathetic to his case when Caleb showed her evidence of my cheating and emotional manipulation and demanded I pay him spousal support. He took everything. The cars, the house, the little money I had been saving for retirement. That was a month ago. I haven't seen Chris since then. I think it's for the best. If I do see him, I don't think I could stop myself from running into his arms and begging for a second chance. And I know that isn't healthy for either of us. Last I heard, he got promoted at work and has a girlfriend. I keep seeing memories of Chris everywhere, and it is a painful reminder of what I threw away. I haven't seen John since I apologized to him. From what I heard, he's done with his placement and is back in school in the city. I'm happy for him, but I never want to see him again. As for me, I'm just trying to move on with my life. But it is really hard. Chris left me with next to nothing. I am living with Becky in the meantime as I try to get another job and another place. So far, I haven't been able to get any interviews or find a house in my budget. I don't know if this was the update you guys expected or not. I guess it doesn't really matter. I miss my husband and I regret the past 6 months so much. I'd give anything to go back and slap some sense into myself. I don't think I'm going to update on the story again. Thank you for hearing my story, Reddit friends.